Africa sold you out too. You're here because African chiefs helped. They helped, man. And that's what should hurt you the most. They watch you leave and go on a boat, dying. Probably saw you dying before you even hit the horizon. And you up here acting, and you got in your mind a cartoon version where the white man just went over there in boats and just got him. That's the cartoon version you got in your mind. Well, unfortunately, that cartoon version is not accurate. Unfortunately, African chiefs helped enslave your ancestors. Africans been selling out Africans from the beginning of African Americans. And if you don't accept that and realize that reality, what you're going to be doing is painting this picture like you can do no wrong. You were doing wrong from the beginning. Like you just such a chosen people. You were selling each other out. You literally sold somebody out to the beach, from the beach. You literally sold your own people off the beach, onto the water, on over here to America. Sitting up acting like you got this whole image like, well, it was the white man that did all this to us. Well, unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, no. You had African chiefs. This is they need to make a movie on that. You want to make a movie showing history? That's what you need to do. Come on, man. These kids need to see that. That is not cooning. That is not being a sellout. That's not being an Uncle Tom. These kids, I'm a prophet of God. I could care less about what your culture calls a sellout. I'm a prophet. I'm going to tell you the whole truth. These kids need to see the truth that we sold each other out so they can understand human nature, if not anything else. And human nature is it's everyone for themselves. It's everyone for themselves. When you see the African chief selling his own people, putting them on a boat off the beach. No more African beaches for them. No more African beaches for our ancestors. When they selling you out and putting you on the beach, on the boat. That's what I'm trying to show you. Now, that's the biggest sellout it is. From the very beginning, the whole reason you're here is because you have been subject to the biggest sellout. Literally selling you out to the beach, out to the waters, out to another land. Why you looking for an Uncle Tom type of character? You can't be serious. You don't know the real history. The real history is African chiefs is the whole reason you even here. Black people, Africans is the whole reason you even here. Imagine that, man. I can't stress that enough. White boys going over with these big old black guys, the equivalent of like basketball players. We are the watered down version of Africans. Can you imagine how huge they were? We're mixed up with all different races now. Can you imagine the original Africans that came on the boats? Easily 6'5". Easily. And muscular and huge. And he just gonna come over there and he's about $180, 6'2". Imagine that, man. And on his own land, he just gonna get taken. They had help, man. It's common sense. But this is not showed in American history. It's not put in American history books. It is not emphasized properly. So we can see the origin. So you can understand it wasn't about race. How is it about race when the African chiefs are selling you out? Racism was a byproduct of slavery. Racism was a byproduct of slavery. They didn't just say, oh, they're black, let's enslave them. They're Africans, let's get them. They don't look like us, let's enslave them. I didn't let that resonate. They're African, let's get them. It had nothing to do with that. Racism came when they got you here. Once they got you here, they looked at you as subject to them. You're not better than them. They're superior to you. That's when the racism started, when they brought you here. In the beginning, it was not racism. It was humanity dominating over a weaker people, or a people in a weaker situation. That's what you need to understand, because these people out here, and not just black people. When I say these people, you're like, oh, he's talking about black people like these people. No, I'm talking about people out here, these historians, these people that like to paint these stories about slavery and all this stuff that happened, but they leave out the part where they don't, where the African chiefs were helping the white man. They don't show you that. I didn't know that. I had to become a man to find that out. Until that point, I thought they were brought over here from Africa. The white man enslaved Africans. That basically was the foundation. And then I got older, did my own research, found out the African chiefs were helping them. That's the most disappointing information. It's one thing to be white and enslave somebody. It's one thing to be African and sell your own people over to another race, to a man that would be considered strange. You can sell out people you done seen grow up in your village. You can sell people you seen grow up. You can sell people that they family left behind with you in Africa. You can sell that. You can sell off some portions of people's family that you've seen them. That's worse. That's worse in my book. In other words, he's at worse fault than the white man. The white man wasn't sitting there watching these children grow up. The white man wasn't sitting there watching these people interact with their mothers and fathers. It was the African chief that was sitting there. He was over all of them, sitting there watching them grow up, eat together, party together, and all of that. Then sell you off to slavery. I'm just keeping it 100 with you, man. And that's why people respect me, because I paint the full picture. I don't leave parts out. That's what my enemies like to do. They like to leave parts out. Important parts out. Life-changing parts out. The fact that I was a kid myself, parts out. Yeah, like to leave that part out. That's very important. He was a kid too. That's very important information. And you don't have the luxury of ignoring that information. Just like this. They don't have the luxury of ignoring the fact that the African chiefs sold you out from the beginning. You don't have the luxury of ignoring that part and looking in my face. I'm looking at you like, what you looking at? I know the truth. I know the truth that it's never been good. I know the truth. We're here because of Africans as well. We're here just as much, if not more of the reason, because of African chiefs. That's the main reason you're here. And you know what? You can't stop that from resonating. You can't stop that from resonating, my friend. The fact that you're here is because of African chiefs. How are you going to stop that from resonating when you're still here? You're still suffering because of it in many different ways because of some other Africans. And I got to keep it 100, man. And it's nothing against Africans over there or over here. I'm just keeping it 100. They need to make a movie, a good motion picture on that. Call it a motion picture. Need to make a good motion picture on the fact that African chiefs sold out the Africans for us to get here. And then in the movie, we don't want to see all the stuff once we get here on this movie. On this movie, we're going to start with the African chiefs interacting with the family of the slaves that would come to America. How he interacted with them, how he loved them, and then how, punchline, the slave trade started in Africa. This is what it's going to be centered around. The slave trade. And how he interacted with his own people. And then how he sold them off and put them on a ship. And then the movie ends. I'm going to end the credits. If I made the movie, I'm going to end the credits where you see boats on the horizon. And you see Africans jumping off the boat. Yeah, I'm going to make it real. Because that's what they were doing. They were jumping off the boats. By the way, all of them didn't make it here. Some of them, and it's safe to say that there's African bones in the water. Possibly. Bits and pieces. Because they jumped in the water. We ain't show that part. Matter of fact, that's what I would show. Some of them jumping in the water and then take it back to showing the horizon, the boats on the horizon of the ocean. Because they showing you, they talking, if you ain't know any better, you would think the Europeans did it all on their own. If you ain't know any better, you would think it was a one-man job. They just came over there and seized Africans. Unfortunately, they were not seized. See, this is how they put it. Like they were seized. Like our ancestors were seized. They were not seized. I'm sorry. They were sold off by African chiefs. This is important, and I know that this is important, like I said, to show us the nature of human nature. If that makes sense. To show us that really, we ain't never been together. We ain't never been together as a people. When African chiefs sold you off. So when were you together? When were you together? Before the slave trade? Because once the slave trade got popping, he was selling us off. So when were we together? When were we in unity in any place and time? When that's the case. When that's the history. When that's the origin of why you're here in the first place. Show me when we wasn't selling each other out, in other words. That part. Show me when we were not selling each other out when the African chiefs sold our ancestors to get here. That time, this is reality, and you should think about it now. Okay, humans are, you see how humans are? You see how humans are? You just was under the impression that we were in harmony at one point. Well, unfortunately, that harmony did not last long enough for you to stay in Africa. That harmony ended, and they sold us off. Whatever little harmony we had. Because what we do is we look at the culture and say, well, we was there and we used to do this, and you look at all the clothes. Well, while you're looking at the clothes and you're looking at all the drums, you, in the middle of those drums and clothes, your ancestors were sold off. Okay? That's what happened. Whether you accept this or not. And I tell people all the time, I ask people, I say, do you think, I ask other African Americans this, do you think white people, black people would have sold off white people? Let's just say white people, Africans went to Europe and they had more power. Do you think they would have sold off Europeans into another land and bargained with the European chiefs, if you will, and sold off Europeans and bought Europeans rather as slaves, and Africans had Europeans as slaves and brought them to America? Do you think they would have did that? Do you think Africans would have went through with that? Going to European chiefs and buying European slaves to bring over here? Do you think they would have had the heart to do that? And a lot of African Americans say, no, because we have more compassion. Well, how come the African chiefs didn't have any compassion? How come the African chiefs had no compassion? Not enough to keep you there. So what I believe is that no, we would have not had compassion. We would have been human. We would have, in human nature dominates the weaker humans. If they were weaker, if Europeans were weaker, Africans would have enslaved them too. This is just the nature of humans. It's just like the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom does not spare the weaker animals. The human kingdom does not spare the weaker humans. I'm gonna say that again. The animal kingdom does not spare, the animals in the animal kingdom does not spare the weaker animals. The stronger animals take over, dominate. It's the same thing with the human kingdom. The stronger humans dominates the weaker humans. So yes, if the Africans were stronger humans, they definitely would have enslaved the weaker humans. It made them just do what they wanted them to do. This is the nature of humans, what we're dealing with here. That's what we're dealing with. While you trying to say race, like I told you, racism started when they brought you over here. Before that, it was the fact that you were a weaker human. You were in a weaker human situation. And they had more strength and you were enslaved as a result. It had nothing to do with you being African in the beginning. In the beginning, you can't leave that out because that's a foundation. That's an initiation. You can't leave out the origins of the reason why we're here. And the origin is African chiefs sold us off. That's important nature and information and energy and all of that right there. That's important to understand that. And understand all those ingredients of the interaction with the African chiefs, with the Europeans. Those are ingredients to this history of why we're here. You can't, in other words, you can't leave that out the cake. You can't leave that part out the cake, buddy. I don't care what you do. You can't leave the fact out that the Europeans interacted with the African chiefs, and that's why we're here. If it was a cake, you would be leaving out that ingredient. You would be leaving out the eggs. That's what you would be doing. You would be leaving out the eggs. And you can get mad at me, but you're just mad at the history. You're being biased. You're listening from a biased ear. When I'm sitting here telling you the African chief sold you off from the beginning. Racism didn't start, like I said, till they brought you over here and they were superior over you. Then you had the culture that was of white superiority, which included racism in the culture. The superiority, the culture over you. This white superior culture started when they were over you over here. And that produced racism as a byproduct of the culture that was over you when they enslaved you over here. So it was like, yeah, those people, the people we over, yeah, those are niggers, yeah, those are those people, like that. That's byproduct of them dominating you in the culture of white superiority over you. That's how it started. If you didn't know any better, you would think it started from the beginning when they got you from Africa. Like they just was racist and got you. Like they were just racist and pulled you out from Africa. African chiefs helped you them. So how is it racism? How is it racism when you have Africans helping? How is it racism when you have Africans actually helping to get you here? They paid for your bus ticket, buddy. I'm just being real. Africans paid for your bus ticket over here. And you need to hear it like that so you can understand what's going on and how this really is, man. Because people be sitting up here painting these pictures like, well, it's not our nature to be against each other. That person ain't nothing but a sellout. Well, the nature of your people started with, you want me to point to the beginning where the African chiefs was selling you out, selling you over here? That's the nature of your people. Just in case you didn't know. And that's what we need to start informing these kids so they can understand, hey, black people, everybody black ain't your friend. Everybody black is not your brother and sister when they selling you out. So you consider the African chiefs our brothers and sisters. You consider African chiefs your brothers and sisters. And they sold your ancestors out. You consider them brothers and sisters. That's what you consider them. No, I see everybody as who they are. Humans. They're humans. That's what they are. We're all humans. And that is where you have the absence of racism when you understand that none of us are for each other at all. That's when you become non-racist. None of us are for each other. No. Come on. I just showed you the origin. I just showed you how African chiefs sold the Africans sold them over here and had money. While you over there suffering and dying, they still living off the money they got from you. Yeah, we were never for each other. Humans are never for each other, period. That's what you got to understand. Because you think you're down, but you still ain't telling all the truth about black on black crime. Come on, man. You saying you down, but you're not telling the whole truth. Ain't no different than not telling the truth about these African chiefs helping to enslave us to get over here. You act like the white man was Scorpion. Get over here. Well, unfortunately, he didn't have to be Scorpion. He didn't need a harpoon in a yellow and black outfit to get us over here. The African chiefs helped. He didn't have to be in Mortal Kombat. He didn't have to be a Scorpion. This is what you got to understand. People got it twisted.